Good evening and welcome to the COVID-19 update on Channels Television. I'm Millicent Walker. The monies talking about donations received from the Presidential Task Force is 792 million naira. Now, it began as pneumonia of unknown cause detected in Wuhan, China, and was first reported to the World Health Organization country office in China on the 31st of December 2019. The outbreak of the new coronavirus disease was declared a public health emergency of international concern on the 30th of January 2020 and named COVID-19 in February. Since then, over 200 countries and areas around the world have recorded over 4 million confirmed cases. Scientists around the world have been conducting researches to know a lot more about the virus, which they say spreads primarily through droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose when an infected person coughs or sneezes. With the virus set to stalk the planet for a long time to come, at this time without specific vaccines or treatments and with many ongoing clinical trials evaluating potential treatments. In the course of the program, we look at how we all can live safely with this new reality. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and CDC puts the total number of confirmed cases in the country at 5,162, with 1,180 patients discharged and 167 deaths recorded. 193 new cases were recorded across 14 states as of last night. Regional figures sees Lagos in the southwest, the epicenter of the pandemic in the country, with 2,099 cases, followed by Kano in the northwest with 753. In the FCT, Leeds in the north central comes in third with 379 cases, and Bauchi still leads in the northeast with 207 cases. In the south-south, Edo State tops the states there with 92 cases, Enugu in the southeast with 12 confirmed cases. Now, the Office of the Accountant General has published a report of donations received into the Treasury Single Account TSA from Nigerians in support of the federal government's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, during the daily briefing today, says the total donations received through 5 banks as at May 14th comes to 792 million naira. Mr. Mustafa recognizes the sacrifice of Nigerians, especially those who gave their widow's mite.
With the open government policy driven by transparency and accountability of Muhammadu Buhari's administration, the Presidential Task Force promised that details of all cash donations would be publicly provided. I'm pleased to report that the Office of the Accountant General has published the details of inflow into the federal government COVID-19 eradication support account. As at 14th May 2020, the sum of 791,613 naira 89 kobo has been credited into the TSA account from the various in-country sources. I particularly want to commend the sacrifice of some ordinary Nigerians, typified by the donations as low as 1 naira, which for us comes from the purest of hearts.
And the rising cases of health workers who test positive for COVID-19 across the country is becoming a source of worry. The leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives at a news conference in Abuja, this is Mr. Abdurrafiu Adeniji, says that over 200 nurses are currently in isolation as another 8 have tested positive for the virus. According to him, 5 nurses and midwives have also paid the ultimate price in the line of duty. Mr. Adeniji, however, attributes the rising cases of the virus infection among nurses and midwives to the lack of adequate knowledge on how to use the PPEs.
There are evidence of lack of adequate awareness and knowledge of the nature and transmission of COVID-19 disease. There is equally lack of adequate knowledge on the use of PPE and sometimes infectious disease principle and protocol are being violated by some healthcare frontline professionals. The hazard being confronted by nurses and midwives are enormous and be unduly exposed to this virus with thousands on isolation. This further exposes frontline health worker professionals to infection, particularly COVID-19. Over 2,000 Nigerian healthcare professionals, especially nurses and doctors, have tested positive to COVID-19. The statistics as received through NAM COVID-19 Situation Report Room show that almost 1,000 nurses and midwives have been exposed to COVID-19 infection, out of which about 250 are currently in isolation, and about 85 out of about 600 that have been tested have tested positive. On the whole, about 6 nurses and midwives have lost their lives. The WHO prescription is 40 nurses per 100,000 population, but what we have in Nigeria is 5 to 6 nurses to 100,000 of population. Therefore, we cannot afford to lose part of this scarce human resources for health.
So essentially about 80 nurses there testing positive to the virus. Well, let's tell you what's happening in Lagos State, where the government now has more isolation centers for use in the coronavirus pandemic fight. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, handed over a property forfeited by former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diziani Alison Madueke, to the Lagos State government for use as an isolation center. 6 flats, 3 bedrooms, a boys' quarter was handed over to the federal government following an order of a federal high court in Lagos in 2017. The zonal head of the EFCC says the gesture is part of the Commission's social responsibility towards the fight against the spread of COVID-19. The governor of Lagos appreciates the Commission and the federal government for the support. And from Bauchi State, the government resolved to cut down expenses on non-essential services to refocus on spending on essentials in areas of health, education and agriculture as a strategy to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the state's economy. It was one of the outcomes of the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Committee report submitted to the state governor. The committee set out to identify and recommend measures the state should take to enhance revenue, save costs, improve internally generated revenue. While receiving the report, Governor Bala noted that it's high time state governments look inwards for alternative sources of revenue for continuity and sustainability. Let's bring you our correspondent, Hajira Liu, who speaks about the latest isolation center in Bauchi State.
Thank you. The capacity of Bauchi State government to manage increasing cases of COVID-19 has yet again received another boost as the Nigerian Air Force today inaugurated a 20-bed isolation ward at the Nigerian Air Force Base Hospital here in Bauchi. The isolation ward is well equipped to manage both severe and mild cases of COVID-19. Air Force Boss Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar has been speaking about some of the contributions that the Air Force is giving not just to Bauchi, but to the country as a whole.
The Nigerian Air Force has equally continued to provide airlift for personnel of the NCDC and medical equipment whenever our services are required. So far, the Air Force has conducted several missions covering over 300 flying hours in support of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. All these efforts, as well as several other initiatives of the Nigerian Air Force, were aimed at adequately providing military aid to civil power as enshrined in the Constitution of our great country.
The COVID-19 pandemic has no doubt affected all aspects of our lives. Faith is not an exception. As some governors begin to ease lockdown restrictions and in some cases restrictions on worship, the Bauchi State Governor insists that such ban is still in place pending when the situation improves. For the fourth consecutive week now, both Friday prayers and church services have not been held. From Gombe State, KhadijahBashir, Channels Television.
Thank you, Hajara. And more about what kind of lifestyle changes we should be making now. Joining us on the program is a public health physician, Dr. Japhet Olugbogi. He joins us via Skype. I believe he's around Amuwo Dofin at this time. Thank you for joining us. Now, going by the latest statistics and the new way Nigerians and the world is expected to live now, how are we doing from what you've observed, our lifestyle changes or what some call new social adjustments?
Thank you very much for having me. Well, we are post-lockdown, so everybody is going about their business as much as they can. Well, life continues, as some people will say. But then again, we need to remember that COVID-19 is still out and still killing people everywhere. So we need to be wary as well as much as we can. We still need to use our face mask and observe social distancing as much as we can. A lot of people are relaxing from their own. They're taking it for granted now. But COVID-19 is still spreading as wildfire in our country and everywhere in the world. So we still need to maintain hand hygiene and social distancing as much as we can and use our face mask. If anybody can do away with large gathering, they should avoid it as much as they can. If you don't have any business going out to the bank or to some places people converge, we should avoid it as much as we can so as to prevent the full-blown scourge of the virus in our country or in Lagos, as the case may be.
All right, quickly tell us, seeing as the virus may never go away and the UN is warning of the pandemic causing widespread distress and mental ill health, particularly countries where there's a lack of investment in mental health care, would you say that mental health, is part of our overall health response?
Yes, mental health is actually part of our overall response in Lagos and in Nigeria. One of the thematic areas that the Emergency Operations Center has is psychosocial team. The psychosocial team in Lagos especially, I don't know about other states, has at least about 30 members where you have psychologists, psychiatrists, and all of that, who counsel patients, who counsel people who are positive, who counsel people who are on the isolation beds in the isolation centers. So mental health is a huge part of response in Nigeria, and it should be in any part of the country and any part of the world.
All right, we ask that you continue to remain safe. We appreciate your time on the program, Dr. Japhet Olugbogi. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come on our COVID-19 update, more on the states across Nigeria and the battle against COVID-19. Join us again. Let's now update you on some of the state government's efforts across the country to stopping the spread of COVID-19. We begin in Gombe State. Following a meeting with religious leaders, the governor lifted the ban on religious gatherings with emphasis on congregants compulsorily wearing the face mask, observing social distancing and ensuring and enforcing all necessary sanitary conditions. The governor also relaxed the curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. as opposed to the earlier 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. However, the ban on commercial motorcycles, inter- and interstate travel ban remains. The government also donated 100,000 face masks to mosques and churches, with palliative expected to reach a minimum of 30 homes in all the polling units in the state. And Governor Aminu Masari of Katsina State has directed the lifting of the lockdown order on Mani and Safana local government areas of the state. According to the government, the lifting followed the receipt of a report from stakeholders that no new case was discovered in the two local governments and the first few cases have fully recovered. The government still requests people of the two local governments to continue to maintain physical distancing and adhere to all the other safety protocols. Now, if you attempt to enter Kaduna State from now, you will find its senior political appointees supervising the enforcement of interstate travel ban at all entry points and borders across the state. The Kaduna State government made this decision following alleged complicity by some security operatives in the enforcement of the lockdown imposed by the state government. And this is to contain the spread of the pandemic. Among the senior government officials include the Kaduna State Deputy Governor, commissioners, permanent secretaries, heads of departments and agencies. Well, joining us for more with regards to efforts to flattening the curve is Dr. KhadijahBashir. She's a public health physician. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Today, from the Presidential Task Force National Coordinator, he talked about how Nigeria is still witnessing stigma, persons with COVID-19 and fears that this is a virus without vaccines. How do you think we can manage this?
Well, for a start, stigma. We're talking about stigma here. Stigma in the context of social stigma in the context of health refers to like the negative association of people or group of people to a disease, like an infectious disease. And this leads to them being stigmatized, stereotyped, and being dehumanized also and discriminated. So there are many things that lead to this stigma. Like, for example, in the context of COVID-19 that we are in now, COVID-19 is a new disease that is not known. So many things are not known about it. So people are scared. Another thing is that it's easier for them to relate fear to others, to associate fear with others. So these things also help increase the stigma that is ongoing. So what can we do? First of all, what's the impact of stigma, like on the response to COVID-19? People that are being stigmatized, or you see others being stigmatized, people that have symptoms now will not feel confident to come up with their symptoms or to go for testing, screening, and then possible isolation due to fear of stigma. And then so they stay back at home, and this leads to more spread of these diseases. And in some cases, some people are even stigmatized in like social gatherings, people avoid them. So this sometimes affect people even mentally, especially our health workers, the health workers that are involved in this fight. So how can we help? How can we prevent this stigma? One thing we can do is, for a start, we need to help with more information about COVID-19, more information through the media, especially social media, where it spreads fast. However, we need to make sure we avoid misinformation, misconceptions, and rumors, which tend to spread more than the information about COVID-19 itself. At the same time, we also need to make sure that we involve like influencers, like religious leaders, yes, to educate people on what stigma does to people that are affected and how we can support them. Another thing we can do is to involve those that have recovered or people that have treated loved ones to come out and give us information on how it went through and that people actually survive this disease.
But talking about that, on the prescription for treatment, treating symptoms isn't the same as treating a virus, but some survivors have questioned the difference of COVID-19 and malaria, saying that they were given malaria treatment.
Yes, like it has been said, malaria is a parasitic infection. COVID-19 is a viral infection. However, research is still ongoing. Even though they said they've been given treatment for malaria, research is still ongoing on that drug in itself, in which Nigeria is also part of it, as stated in the brief by the PTF. So there's still trial ongoing to determine the possible use eventually of the drug. Exactly.
As well.
Exactly.
All right, we appreciate your time. Dr. KhadijahBashir, public health physician, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Scientists at the World Health Organization say nearly 250 million people in Africa could contract coronavirus within the next year of the pandemic. But they think more people will survive it than in the US and Europe because so many Africans are young. Meanwhile, over in the United States, a former top health official says the US might be heading for the darkest winter in modern history.
Americans yearn to get back to work, to open their businesses and to provide for their families. I get that. However, what we do must be done carefully with guidance from the best scientific minds. Our window of opportunity is closing. If we fail to improve our response now based on science, I fear the pandemic will get worse and be prolonged. There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It'll be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza. Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history. First and foremost, we need to be truthful with the American people. Americans deserve the truth. The truth must be based on science. We have the world's greatest scientists. Let us lead. Let us speak without fear of retribution.
Now, the NCDC has announced the inclusion of a 25th lab to the National COVID-19 Laboratory Network at the Federal Medical Center, Yola Damawa. The center says others in progress include Katsina, Kwara, Anambra, and Gombe. You can find the latest guide on their website. Also, the center continues to work closely with states. You can find the latest national strategy to scaling up coronavirus testing in Nigeria and other public health advisory. According to the World Health Organization, not everything you hear about COVID-19 is true. It's launched a campaign about countering misinformation on the virus in several countries. You can find the regular updates about the spread of the pandemic. And of course, our website, channelstv.com, has all the stories. You can find the latest updates on the pandemic in Nigeria and across the world, and also other stories on our website, and that is www.channelstv.com. Well, that's it on the program. Thank you for watching. Another update comes your way again at 9. And as you enjoy your weekend, wash your hands frequently. Don't forget to use your face mask and avoid large gatherings. Bye for now.